Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we are going to be focusing on some tips for really a 5-minute skin retouching tutorial. And this is going to be purely for beginners as well to skin retouching. It's funny, I really was looking through my YouTube channel the other day and seeing kind of where the gaps were in some of my skin retouching tutorials. And I've realized that I've never really done anything that's very quick and simple and easy for beginners to actually do with skin retouching. I think we've covered lots of dodge and burn tutorials, we've been through frequency separation, but not so much about a quick beginner tutorial or even just something easy and quick for a lot of photographers or retouchers that retouch for other types of retouching, not just beauty retouching, as I do showcase a lot on my channel. So you might be doing e-commerce photography that you need to retouch, you might be doing weddings, or you might be doing family portraits where you've got a very high workload of photos to complete with retouching and you can't really afford to spend a lot of time retouching each image. So this is really what this tutorial is going to be for. So to get straight into it today, I'm going to go through a couple of tools that are going to be best for this 5-minute retouching tutorial. And the first one I'm going to focus on is the spot healing brush tool. So really what we're going to be focusing on with this tool is going to be spots or blemishes on the skin, or even some fine lines that we do see. This is going to be a really quick way of removing those. Now, the best way to use this tool is to create a new blank layer over here by clicking this button. I'm going to rename this layer to Healing Tool. And we're going to go over to the healing tools over here. If you click and hold, you'll see that there's a spot healing brush tool here. I'm also going to move the brush size up a little bit. We do sort of need it a bit bigger just to sort of cover some of those blemishes on the skin. Now, why I created this new layer over here is really so we use this as a non-destructive tool. And we really want to make sure that even though this is a very quick process of skin retouching and a lot quicker than for things like beauty photography, we do want to make sure that we're still doing it in as non-destructive a way as possible. So we also have to make sure before we start using this tool on a blank layer that sample all layers up here is checked. So you can see that this is checked and we do have content aware selected as well. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so we can see the skin tone a little bit better. And if you press J on the keyboard, that is going to bring you back to your spot healing brush tool. So that's a really nice quick shortcut. Now I'm just going to spend a couple of seconds removing some of these blemishes by dragging the brush over those spots. You might need to adjust the brush size for some of the blemishes. So I'm going to kind of just run the brush over some of these spots here so you can see how quick that actually is. And I will use this process even for some of my beauty retouching as well. But this is quite a quick part, and I would just really go very quickly over some of these blemishes, just to even out the skin tone a little bit more there. You can also, if there's any little dry bits of skin that are really sort of standing out, you can remove that as well. All right, so that's most of those little blemishes gone. So I won't go too overboard here. We are really just focusing on the blemishes at the moment. My rule of thumb for skin retouching is really just removing temporary unwanted elements. So things like blemishes that usually wouldn't be there on the skin tone. So we've pretty much removed all the blemishes now. So that was a really quick process. I'm just going to click this layer on and off so you can see what a difference that has made. It's a really great non-destructive way of doing this. You can go back to this blank layer here where we've just done those adjustments with the spot healing brush tool, and you can adjust them, or you can remove parts of the layer if you feel you've gone too far at any point. Now for this as well, you can use the patch tool. The patch tool is not one of my favorite tools to use though in the healing tools. There's not really a great way to use it non-destructively. You can duplicate the background layer as a background copy and then use the patch tool on that at certain areas, and that can kind of help with some really textured spots. But to be perfectly honest, I think it removes too much of the texture from the skin tone, and sometimes I just don't particularly like using it. Sometimes you will have to use it if you're really in a hurry to do things. It can be a very quick way of doing things, but Honestly, I prefer to use the next method that I'm about to talk about, which is actually by using the clone stamp tool. So this is just going to be for focusing on the parts of the skin where it's quite textured or even a little bit bumpy, just as you can see over here. This will fix a lot of things, even things like some facial peach fuzz that you want to remove, which we do have just over here as well. And it will just correct a lot of those unwanted elements that you're trying to soften overall. So once again, I'm going to create another blank layer just by clicking on this button, and I'm going to rename it to clone stamp. Okay, so our clone stamp tool is located just over here on the left hand side, and you can press S on the keyboard to use it as a shortcut. So we're going to click on that. I'm going to make my brush size a lot bigger, and we're going to make sure the hardness of the brush is at 0%. We want a very big, large brush size, so we're going to just keep making sure. So probably, yeah, about 400 pixels for this particular image that I'm working on. We want the brush to be really large and quite soft as well. Then I'm going to move over to opacity up the top here. I'm going to move this down to probably around 26% is fine, and I'm going to do the same with flow, so to around the same amount. It doesn't have to be exact, but just around that amount. So 26% on each at the moment. I'm also going to make sure that sample all layers is selected again, because we are working on a blank layer. We want to make sure that it is sampling the textures of the skin tone from the background layer. But before we just start here, I'm going to check on my brush settings, which are just in the top right hand corner here. And then we're going to click transfer on these brush settings. So this is going to create a little bit more of a softness with the effect that we get from using this clone stamp tool. So if you haven't used the clone stamp tool before, it's really as simple as holding down Alt on the keyboard to select a portion of the skin that you want to sample. This is the same as using the Option key on a Mac keyboard, I believe. So you just hold down Alt and select the skin tone that you want to sample. So we're just sampling over here near this textured area. We're going to work on this particular area. And then by using this method, I'm just going to really lightly move the brush, holding down the brush at the same time. I'm going to start moving it over this particular area where it's a little bit textured. So keep sampling areas around there. You don't want to use that one sample that we've selected. You want to keep sampling so you're getting variation in the skin. Now, you don't want to go overboard with this method. It is a very great way of doing this and softening the texture on the skin tone very quickly, but you do not want to go overboard, because as soon as you do, it's going to start to look very waxy. And just to click that layer on and off, you can see that that's made a difference with really softening that area there. So I'm just going to move around the skin tone and do that in some of the other areas, just to kind of get those areas looking a little bit less textured. Now, keeping in mind, this method is not perfect. It is a very quick way of softening and retouching skin. And it's one of the less destructive ways I like to do it, because it really is still sampling that texture. And that's one of my mantras always for retouching, is to retain as much texture as possible. You can go over to the healing brush tool again. So the spot healing brush tool that we had before. Now you can use this layer, or you can use a separate layer again on top. But if you find that you've still got a few little spots that you want to remove, you can just go back to that particular tool to do so. You can even use it to remove some of the peach fuzz on the side here. So this was the original, and now this is the after. So as you can see, you can go a little bit further into it if you really wanted to remove a little bit more texture. It depends what you're working on. But as far as a very natural retouch is concerned, I find that this is some of the best ways to do it in a very quick way, but also a less destructive way. So before and after. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on a very quick 5-minute retouching tutorial. I thought this would be really good to put out there, because I know there's a lot of different types of retouchers out there and photographers, and if you needed something that was a lot quicker for higher workloads, this can really come to your advantage in that sense. You can even create an action that's kind of ready for those layers to pop up every time that you have an image that you need to retouch with skin. I like to do that a lot with e-commerce retouching, and it's unfortunately something that you don't have a lot of time to retouch such high workloads with those kinds of images. So this is just one way that I really like to do some skin retouching if I feel that I need to do it in a very quick mannered way. And just as a side note, if anyone is interested in learning more about beauty retouching or more about retouching for a diverse range of skin tones, I've recently released a course with Domestika that really covers a lot of these elements and these topics. So if you're interested in signing up for that course, you can visit the link in the description box below and that will give you a lot more info. So thanks guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions or any requests for future videos on my channel, please let me know. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure that you do because I'll be posting a lot more videos in future. Thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you in the next video. Bye!